Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Remember, context is everything. I've told you. How many times now? 28? You never learn. Just kidding around. My name is John Michael, founder, CEO of Context is Everything Media Network. And I'm building my context, because context is everything, here at the offset of the media network, by reading an entire history textbook about the world. And I'm doing this from a book that was written in 2001, again, to further build my context, because things are written differently today than they are then, because I was a history teacher and for 4 years, so I've read modern history textbooks, and this one is a little bit different. And it's not like it's vastly different, but slightly different, and I'm actually interested in those slight differences, because it adds a little extra intrigue. Yesterday, we did Ancient Greece, Chapter 5, Section 4, which I narrowed down to being about philosophers, because that was what I cared about. You had Socrates come first, Socrates teaching in the town square, talking, not writing. Plato, one of his students, Socrates also prosecuted by the Council of 500 by the democracy of Athens, and he is ostracized. So they say, get out of here for 10 years, you 70-year-old man. You have to move away for 10 years. And he says, you know what? I'm going to take the death penalty rather than move away for 10 years. So he dies. Plato, his predecessor, creates the academy, so formal teaching. He does writing. He writes the Republic, which is his ideal state. I'm going to need to plug the charger into the computer, so bear with me. The Republic, which is about his ideal state, which breaks government or society into three classes: workers, soldiers, and philosophers, led by a philosopher king, who's the ultimate authority. And then after Plato, through the academy, his predecessor is Aristotle. And what I have as the note for Aristotle is the golden mean. Mean meaning the average. And that's a moderate course between extremes. Now, those are the things I wrote down, because those are brief overviews, brief synopses of Greek philosopher trio. So that's that. Also, this is like not an overshirt, but I think it fits well as an overshirt. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Plenty of sunshine coming my way. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. Mass murderer to some. Alexander and the Hellenistic Age, Section 5, Chapter 5. Doesn't that song Zippity-Doo-Dah have a way of just sticking in your head? I don't like the rest of the song, I just like the chorus. It's really good. I could sing it on repeat for hours, given the day. Today's a Zippity-Doo-Dah day, as you can tell by the sunshine. Alexander and the Hellenistic Age. Setting the scene. He is always taking in more, everywhere, casting his net around us, while we sit idle and do nothing. Demosthenes was writing his fellow Athenians about Philip II, the king of Macedonia. Bit by bit, Philip was bringing Greece under his rule. When, asked Demosthenes, when will you Athenians take the necessary action? Then Athenians finally did take action against Philip. It was too late. When? Athens and other Greek city-states lost their independence, yet disaster ushered a new age in which Greek influence spread from the Mediterranean to the borders of India. The architect of this new era was Philip's son, known to us and to history as Alexander the Great. Heading: Alexander the Great. To the Greeks, the rugged mountainous kingdom of Macedonia was backward, half-civilized land. The rulers of this frontier land, in fact, were of Greek origin and kept ties to their Greek neighbors. As a youth, Philip had lived in Thebes and had come to admire Greek culture. Later, he hired Aristotle as a tutor to his young son, Alexander. Subheading: Philip's Dream. When Philip gained the throne in 359 BC, he dreamed of conquering the prosperous city-state in the south. Prosperous city-states, Sparta and Athens, I'm assuming. Sparta and Athens, right? I'm sorry. Others he conquered. No, sorry. Let me just read it back. I apologize. My apologies here. Okay. Philip had greater dream, to conquer the Persian Empire. Before he could achieve that plan, though, he was assassinated by his daughter at his daughter's wedding. Assassination is the murder of a public figure, usually for political reasons. Philip's determined wife, Olympias, then outmaneuvered his other wives and children to put her own son, Alexander, on the throne. Wow. Conquest of Persia. Alexander was 20 years old. He was already an experienced soldier who shared his father's ambitions. With Greece subdued, he began organizing forces needed to conquer Persia. By 334 BC, he had enough ships to cross the Dardanelles, the strait separating Europe from Asia Minor. Persia was no longer a great power it once had been. The Emperor Darius III was weak, and the provinces were often rebelling against him. Still, the Persian Empire stretched more than 2,000 miles from Egypt to India. Alexander won his first victory against the Persians at Granicus River. He then moved from victory to victory, marching through Asia Minor to Palestine and south to Egypt. In 331 BC, he took Babylon, then seized the other Persian capitals. But before Alexander could capture Darius, the Persian emperor was murdered. Onward to India, subheading. With much of the Persian Empire under his control, the restless Alexander headed farther east. He crossed the Hindu Kush into northern India. There, in 326 BC, his troops for the first time faced soldiers mounted on war elephants. Although Alexander never lost a battle, his soldiers were tired of long campaigns and refused to go further east. Reluctantly, Alexander agreed to turn back. After a long, hard march, they reached Babylon, where Alexander began planning a new campaign. Subheading: Sudden Death. Before he could set out again, Alexander fell victim to sudden fever. As he lay dying, his commanders asked to whom he left his immense empire. "To the strongest," is said to have whispered. In fact, no one leader proved strong enough to succeed Alexander. Instead, after years of disorder, 3 generals divided up the empire. Macedonia and Greece went to one general, Egypt to another, and most of Persia to a third. For 300 years, their descendants competed for power over the lands Alexander had conquered. Oh, wow. So I'm going to turn the book to face you so that you can see the scope of his conquest. I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at, but it looks like the winding road that he took in his conquest. So you can pause it, or you can actually do some of the work yourself and type this in on Google or on DuckDuckGo and look at it yourself. Unbelievable that you expect me to do everything. What am I supposed to hold your hand? Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. Heading. The legacy of Alexander. Although Alexander's empire soon crumbled, he had unleashed changes that would ripple across the Mediterranean world and the Middle East for centuries. His most lasting achievement was the spread of Greek culture. Subheading, the blending of culture. A blending of culture. Across his far-flung empire, Alexander founded many new cities, most of them named after him. The generals who succeeded him founded still more. Greek soldiers traded and artisans settled these new cities. From Egypt to the border of India, they built Greek temples, filled them with Greek statues, and held athletic contests as they had in Greece. Local people assimilated or absorbed Greek ideas. In turn, Greek settlers adopted local customs. Gradually, a blending of Eastern and Western cultures occurred. Alexander had encouraged this blending when he married a Persian woman and urged his soldiers to follow his example. He had also adopted many Persian customs, including Persian dress. After his death, a vital new culture emerged which blended Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian influences. This Hellenistic civilization would flourish for centuries. Alexandria, subheading. At the very heart of the Hellenistic world stood the city of Alexandria, Egypt. Located on the sea lanes between Europe and Asia, its markets boasted a wide range of goods, from Greek marble to Arabian spices to East African ivory. A Greek architect had drawn up plans for Egyptians, Persians, Hebrews. A Greek architect had drawn up plans for the city, which would become home to almost 1 million people. Greeks, Egyptians, Persians, Hebrews, and many others crowded its busy streets. Among the city's marvelous sights was the Pharaohs, an enormous lighthouse that soared 440 feet into the air. What? Pharos? 440 feet into the air. I'm picturing like a roller coaster that drops 200 feet, and you double that. That sounds pretty tall. Alexander and his successors encouraged the work of scholars. The rulers of Alexandria built a great museum as a center of learning. The museum boasted laboratories, lecture halls, and a zoo. It was a well-stocked library that had thousands of scrolls representing the accumulated knowledge of the ancient world. Unfortunately, the library was later destroyed in a fire. One of the most bizarre things that I've ever heard in a history class is this. And that's it? You're not going to talk about the Library of Alexandria getting burnt down? To me, that is bizarre. To me, that is worth discussing. I don't know enough about it to discuss it without researching it. But I know that it had a lot of important information gathered from the most powerful civilization in the world at its time. And I know that it was burnt down. But this is all based off of historical texts, which obviously are written by winners of certain wars and all that. So maybe all of that's not true. But it does sound interesting. Opportunities for women, subheading. Paintings, statues, and legal codes showed that women were no longer restricted to their homes during the Hellenistic period. More women learned to read and write. Some became philosophers or poets. Royal women held considerable power, working alongside husbands and sons who were actual rulers. In Egypt, the able and clever queen Cleopatra came to rule in her own right. New heading, Hellenistic civilization. The cities of the Hellenistic world employed armies of architects and artists. Temples, palaces, and other public buildings were much larger and grander than the buildings of classical Greece. The elaborate new style reflected the desire of Hellenistic rulers to glorify themselves as godlike monarchs. New schools of thought. Subheading: Political turmoil during the Hellenistic age contributed to the rise of new schools of philosophy. The most influential was Stoicism. Its founder, Zeno, urged people to avoid desire and disappointments by accepting calmly whatever life brought. Stoics preached high moral standards, such as the idea of protecting the rights of fellow humans. They taught that all people, including women and slaves, thought unequal in society, were morally equal because all had power of reason. Stoicism later influenced many Roman and Christian thinkers. Interesting. Advances in learning. During the Hellenistic age, thinkers built on earlier Greek, Babylonian, and Egyptian knowledge. In mathematics, Pythagoras derived the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared to calculate the relationship between sides of a triangle. Euclid wrote the Elements, a textbook that became the basis of modern geometry. These mathematics and careful observations, using mathematics and careful observations, the astronomer Aristarchus urged that the Earth rotated on its axis and orbited around the sun. This theory of heliocentric or sun-centered solar system was not accepted by most scientists until almost 2,000 years later. Another Hellenistic astronomer, Eratosthenes, showed that the Earth was round and accurately calculated its circumference. The most famous Hellenistic scientist, Archimedes, applied principles of physics to make practical innovations. He mastered the use of the lever and pulley. He boasted, "Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand on, and I will move the world." An awed audience watched as he used innovation to draw a ship onto shore. Cool. Pretty cool. Subheading: Medicine. About 400 BC, the Greek physician Hippocrates studied the causes of illness and looked for cures. His Hippocratic oath set ethical standards for doctors. Physicians swore to help the sick according to my ability and judgment, but never with the view to injure or wrong, and to protect the privacy of patients. Doctors take a similar oath today. Looking ahead, final heading of the section. And then after that, I'm going to define what Hellenistic is, because I think I kind of understand, but I'm not sure. During the Hellenistic period, Rome emerged as a powerful new state. After its conquest of Asia Minor in 133 BC, it replaced Greece as the dominant power in the Mediterranean world. Still, by then, the Greeks had already made their greatest contribution. Greek ideas about law, freedom, justice, and government have influenced political thinking to the present day. In the arts and sciences, Greeks worked to set standard for later people of Europe. These achievements were especially remarkable because they were produced by a scattering of tiny city-states whose rivalries cost them their freedom. In later chapters, you will see how Greek legacy influenced the civilizations of Rome and of Western Europe. Okay, so what is the Hellenistic civilization? What is the Hellenistic civilization? What is the Hellenistic civilization is the question. We have 3 minutes. I think that's enough time to write a sticky note, but I just need to define what this is. Hellenistic civilization. It sounds like it's what Alexander conquered. So it's like Greece. Where was it? It definitely said it here. I'm gonna read the first paragraph of each heading. To the Greeks, the rugged mountainous kingdom of Macedonia was backward, half-civilized land. The rulers of the frontier land, in fact, yada yada yada. Philip's dream. When Philip gained the throne in 359, he dreamed of conquering the prosperous city-states to the south, but he built a superb army. Okay, all that. Philip still had grander dreams to conquer Persia. Okay, conquest of Persia. Alexander was 20. He already experienced soldier. He shared this. Okay. Persia was no longer a great power. It had once been. Okay. Alexander won his first victory against the Persians at the Granicus River, onward to India, with much of sudden death. Okay, legacy of Alexander. Although Alexander's empire soon crumbled, he unleashed changes that would ripple across the Mediterranean world to the Middle East for centuries. His lasting achievements was the spread of Greek culture, blending of culture. Hellenistic civilization. The cities of the Hellenistic world employed armies and architects. What? Just tell me where the Hellenistic world is. Where the Hellenistic world is this? What is the Hellenistic world, for goodness sake? Okay. The rise of civilizations in Persia, Egypt, and Greece. So is it similar civilization? So Greek fundamental civilizations in Persia, Egypt, and Greece are the Hellenistic civilization. So it's spread of Greek, Middle Eastern, and Persian religions. I'm going to have to figure it out. But remember, whether it's a good morning, it's a good afternoon, or a good evening, that context is everything. That'd have been nice. No, a couple of seconds left. Context is everything. The Hellenistic civilization. I'll have a definition for you tomorrow. It'll be in the description below. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Context is everything.